I call the member for Holt.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. I rise today to thank everyone who attended a summit on youth suicide which I hosted on Saturday the 11th of August 2012, which was held at the City of Casey Council Chambers. It was attended by well over 200 people. The summit, which I'm pleased to say was extensively and has been extensively covered by our local newspapers led by the Star News Group, was about our youth. It was about giving them a voice, to allow them in a community setting to talk about the challenges that they've been facing in our community. It was also about those that had lost loved ones and friends and how we can, as a community, work together to address the issue of youth suicide and to create awareness of the preventative measures, community awareness and resources that are available to literally save the lives of young people in our community. The summit came about because of our young people approaching me wanting to tell their stories. It was progressed as a consequence of further discussions with many of the excellent service providers that we have in the region in education, mental health and community services. The first discussion about this issue came about during a meeting in my office in December last year. We met a group of young staff members who met on condition of anonymity to talk about the death of a young co-worker and to relate how it happened. In that conversation, it was quite clear to me that there was intense anger and a fear about openly talking about what had happened. But they wanted to make sure that I'd heard their story, even if this meant meeting in secret. We met again to talk over the issue earlier this year. It was clear that they wanted a few solid outcomes. First, for their story to be told, and second, for the community to become more engaged. They felt silenced by the community and their workplace. At roughly the same time, I met young people from the City of Casey, the youth ambassadors. The City of Casey Study Tour leaders spoke openly about the challenges and pressures they face. I've always valued the frankness of the feedback I received from these discussions, and I would like to thank the City of Casey for the program which enables this interaction with our young people and political representatives. At these roundtables, I've been fortunate over a number of years to engage with young people in our community, to talk about the issues that they're dealing with in their lives and how they're handling them. Issues mentioned range from school bullying to the immense pressure of being required to define who they'll be as adults when they're as young as 16 and 17. What emerged in the past 12 months from many of these conversations was an incredibly serious issue. They talked about peers and friends committing self-harm and suicide. This understandably has caused these young people intense distress, but they also wanted an engaged community discussion, an informed discussion about what had been occurring even until recently and what needed to be done to prevent their friends and loved ones from taking their lives. When I determined to host this summit and that intention became public, what struck me was the number of people who came forward who'd been touched by youth suicide, who related story after story of their loss or someone they knew and expressed their intense frustration they weren't able to talk publicly about what had happened. They felt confronted by a wall of silence of the community, not giving them permission to discuss their loss. But many wanted that opportunity. They wanted an awareness in the community about this issue. And what was also of incredibly deep concern to me was that young people felt that they had to shoulder the burden of support to those contemplating self-harm and those who had lost loved ones and friends. I'm concerned that the understandable silence that surrounds the issue creates a belief that we as a community don't want to hear from them or provide support, and that results in our young people feeling too ashamed, too guilty and too stigmatised to put up their hand and ask for help. That belief quite clearly is not correct. But we must do whatever it takes to address this belief and to correct this belief. And one thing I'm increasingly aware of, and the young people that listening or may listen to this speech or read it must be aware of, is the deep concern about our young people's well-being from schools, parents, community leaders and service providers. I was extremely pleased to be joined at the summit by a man who is a pioneer in the field of adolescent mental health, Professor Patrick McGorry, Australian of the Year 2010, and Executive Director of Origin Youth Mental Health. At the summit, Patrick McGorry made it clear, and to quote, "Suicide is preventable, but to solve the problem we must first talk about it. Unlike the road toll, which is reduced by 1/3 to 1,600 deaths a year and continues to decline, suicide remains a taboo subject and is sidelined in social policy. Our lack of conversation around the topic has only endorsed the silence that surrounds our young people who often feel too ashamed, too guilty and too stigmatised to put up their hand and ask for help. By asking a young person to talk about these feelings, we give them permission to talk, and in most cases they will feel relieved and better able to deal with the issue." Madam Deputy Speaker, I am proud of the young people in my electorate. I was very proud to host this summit. I believe it will lead to further discussions to prevent a tragedy that's been occurring at our doorstep for some period of time.